Hey guys, tonight we are leaving the blinding blue glow of screens behind and traveling way back to a time when the night was a tangible pressing thing of vast and unknown wilderness that began just beyond the fragile halo of a single tiny flame. We're spending our evening with the most ubiquitous, yet most overlooked, object of the ancient world, the humble olive oil lamp. Picture this. You're not just looking at a clay dish. You're looking at the ancient sun-captured and tamed a little star sitting right there on a table, pushing back a universe of darkness that wants nothing more than to rush back in. It's a cozy thought, until you remember that without this flickering little sun, your world shrinks to the distance you can feel with your hands in the pitch black. A world where every bump in the night is a potential predator, a rival, or a ghost. And you probably won't survive this without a serious dose of primal terror. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're down there in the comments, let me know where in the world you're listening from, and what your local time is. It's always fascinating to see this little community of sleepy historians spanning the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take your first steps into this story not in a grand palace or a fancy workshop, but on a shoreline, somewhere along the vast and warm Mediterranean coast. Tens of thousands of years ago, the sun is dipping below the horizon, and the air is getting chilly. You're a Paleolithic human, and the impending darkness is your daily boss, a strict manager that says your shift of visibility is over. Time to huddle in a cave and hope nothing finds you. But you're clever. Your eyes scan the beach, not for food, but for a tool. You see a large, concave shell, maybe from a mussel or an oyster, washed up and waiting. It's a natural bowl. Nearby, there's a piece of driftwood, or maybe some dried moss, and you've seen the weird, black, liquid fat that renders out of an animal carcass on a fire. The idea, slow and primordial, forms. You pour some of that animal fat into the shell. You take the moss and fashion it into a crude wick. You light it with an ember from your main fire, and you have just invented portable light. It's sputtering, it's smoky, it smells like burning grease, but it's yours. You can carry your fire. This is the absolute genesis of the lamp, a moment of pure ingenuity born from the very human desire to tell the darkness to just back off. For a little while, this shell and fat technology was the standard for an unimaginable length of time, the beta version of illumination. But then, another leap. You're now in the Neolithic period, the era of settlement, of agriculture, of shaping the world to your needs instead of just accepting what you find. Someone, somewhere, looked at a soft, malleable river stone and thought to hollow it out with a harder stone tool. The first stone lamp is born. It's heavier, yes, but it's also sturdier, less likely to spill its precious, burning contents. You can imagine it sitting in the center of a dwelling. It's like dancing off eager faces listening to stories. Its smoke adding another layer to the rich scent of people, animals, and cooking food. These stone lamps have been found from France to the Middle East, a silent testament to a universal human need. They were the first real piece of lighting furniture, an object designed for a single, specific purpose, not just a repurposed bit of nature. But the true revolution, the one that would set the stage for everything to come, was the discovery of the wick. Historians still argue whether the wick was a deliberate invention or a happy accident. Perhaps a piece of the moss used to skim fat from a pot fell into the fire, and someone noticed it drew the fuel up and burned in a more controlled way. Whatever the case, the wick changed everything. Before the wick, you had a pool of fuel with a flame floating on top. Inefficient and smoky, the wick acted as a fuel pump, a delivery system, drawing the oil up to feed a cleaner, more stable flame at its tip. It was the difference between a bonfire and a candle. It tamed the flame, made it predictable. This principle, this simple twist of fibrous material, would remain utterly unchanged for thousands of years. The fuels would change, the containers would evolve, but the fundamental mechanics of a wick drawing liquid fuel to a flame, that was it. The light bulb moment, millennia before the light bulb. And of course, we have to talk about the fuel. In the north, it was animal fat, or fish oil, or rendered blubber functional, but with a smell that could peel paint and a smoke that would blacken the ceiling of your dwelling. But in the sun-drenched lands around the Mediterranean, a golden, sweet-smelling alternative was literally growing on trees, the olive. Once someone figured out how to press these bitter fruits and extract their oil, they had struck liquid gold. Olive oil wasn't just for dressing salads and dipping bread, it was, quite literally, fuel for civilization. It burned cleaner, longer, and with a markedly less offensive odor than its animal-based competitors. It was the premium, unleaded of the ancient world. The adoption of olive oil as lamp fuel was a game of night and day, transforming the lamp from a smoky, necessary evil into a slightly less smoky, almost pleasant centerpiece of domestic life. So here you are, at the end of our first steps together. You've moved from a windswept beach with a shell full of burning fat to a settled stone house with a properly fueled lamp casting a warm, if still faint, glow. The stage is set. The core components are all there: a reservoir, a fuel, a wick, a flame. All that's left is for human creativity to take these elements and run with them, to turn this basic tool into an art form, an industry, and an indispensable companion for the next 3,000 years. But that is a story for the next flicker of the flame. The stone lamp was a solid citizen, reliable and durable, but it was also a bit of a loner. Carving each one was a slow, individual act, a personal project. For light to truly flood the ancient world, it needed to go viral. It needed to become accessible, cheap, and everywhere. It needed to be democratized, and the agent of that change was waiting, thick and abundant underfoot: clay. This wasn't about a lone artisan patiently chiseling. This was about industry. You're no longer on a windswept beach. You're in a bustling, noisy workshop in a growing town. Maybe in Corinth, or Athens. Round the 7th century BCE, the air is thick with the smell of damp earth and wood. Smoke. Your hands are covered in a slick, cool slurry of mud. This is the humblest of materials, the stuff of the ground itself. But in your hands, it's about to become a tiny sun factory. You start with a lump of this wet, prepared clay. The very earliest clay lamps were simple pinched affairs. You'd take a ball of clay and just a pinch it. Your thumb goes into the center, and you press outwards with your fingers, creating a shallow, crude dish with a pinched spout for the wick. They look a bit like a child's first attempt at pottery, asymmetrical and charmingly clumsy. These were the prototypes, the proof of concept. They worked, but they were still one-offs. The real revolution, the thing that truly kicked off the ancient equivalent of an industrial revolution for lighting, was the two-part mold. Imagine two carved stone or fired clay blocks, each with the negative impression of half a lamp carved into them. You'd press a slab of wet clay into the bottom mold, which had the design for the bowl and the decoration. Then you'd slam the top mold on, which forms the top of the lamp and the central filling hole. You'd scrape off the excess clay that oozed out the sides, let it set for a bit, then pop it open. Presto, a perfectly formed lamp. Every single time. You could have an unskilled laborer, maybe even a child, churning these out by the dozen every hour. This was mass production 2,500 years before Henry Ford. And because the mold could be carved with designs, these weren't just utilitarian objects. They were tiny canvases. Before they even saw a flame, they were works of art. As you hold a newly molded lamp, still cool and damp, you can run your finger over the impressions left behind. A grinning theatrical mask, a fierce-looking griffin, the graceful curve of a palmette leaf. Later, under the Romans, the designs would get even more elaborate and, let's be honest, sometimes a little weird. Deities, gladiators, erotic scenes. Your ancient lamp could be a statement piece. It was the equivalent of having a podcast, a painting, and a meme all on your bedside table. But at its core, it was still just a vessel for flame, an everyday object made special by a moment of artistic attention. Once molded, the lamps were left to dry leather hard. Before being tossed into a kiln, the firing process was a tense bit of alchemy. Too hot, and they'd warp or vitrify into a weird glassy blob. Too cool, and they'd be brittle and porous. But when the temperature was just right, the chemical magic happened. The clay sintered, its particles fusing into a hard, durable ceramic that could withstand the heat of its own flame. The color of the finished lamp depended entirely on the local clay and the oxygen levels in the kiln. A well-oxygenated fire would produce the classic Greek red, the color of terracotta. A reduced oxygen environment would result in a darker, grayish-black finish. So, you could often tell roughly where a lamp was from just by its color. It was its own little geographic signature. And then, they were shipped, by the crate load, by the boatload. These lamps were so cheap and so small that they became one of the ancient world's most prolific exports. Archaeologists find them everywhere in the ruins of villas in Britain, in desert outposts in Egypt, in trading posts in India. They are one of the best dating tools for a site because their shapes and styles changed with fashion, creating a very precise timeline. You probably didn't even buy just one. You'd buy a set, like we buy a pack of light bulbs today. They were disposable, in a way. If one cracked, you just tossed it and lit another. The average, non-wealthy household might have a few of these, their main source of light after sunset. They were the IKEA furniture of antiquity, affordable, stylish in a mass-produced way, and absolutely everywhere. This mass production led to a fascinating quirk of ancient life, the lamp as ancient fast food container. There's evidence that street vendors, selling hot snacks or dips, would sometimes use old, broken lamps as impromptu disposable dishes. The bowl was the right size for a single serving of lentils or a bit of fish sauce. So, your cheap source of light could, in its second life, become your cheap takeout box. Historians still argue whether this was a common practice or just a rare bit of ingenious recycling. But the image is wonderfully mundane. You finish your oil-fueled light, then you eat your oil-fueled dinner out of it. Zero waste. So, the flame is now contained in something that isn't a one-off treasure. It's a commodity. It's in every shop, in every market. The light that was once a carefully guarded, handcrafted marvel is now a common possession. You, a regular person living 2,000 years ago, could own a dozen little suns. You could light your home, your workshop, your tavern. The night was shrinking, one cheap, mass-produced clay lamp at a time. The darkness was being outsold. The click-clack of the mold in the workshop fades, replaced by the distinct, everyday symphony of a Roman domus as evening draws in. You're not a potter anymore. You're a member of a Roman household, and the rhythm of your life, from the pre-dawn hustle to the late-night whispers, is conducted by the humble, flickering olive oil lamp. It's not just an object in your home. It's a silent, glowing participant in everything you do. Forget the sterile, overwhelming electric light that floods our modern rooms. Your world is a pool of warm, amber light, surrounded by a pressing, velvety darkness. Your entire existence is lived within this small, dancing circle of illumination, and it makes your world feel both incredibly intimate and terrifyingly small. Your day begins before the sun even thinks about rising. The slave responsible for lighting the house, the lapidarius, is already stirring. You hear the soft scrape of ceramic as he collects the lamps from the previous night. The first chore of the day is to tend to them. He'll carefully tip each one, draining the last dregs of spent oil and nasty, black, acrid sludge into a waste jar. Then, with a small knife or a pin, he'll peel the charred, crispy end off the wick, the alagnion. This little bit of maintenance is crucial. A trimmed wick means a cleaner, brighter flame and less of that eye-watering smoke. It's the ancient equivalent of changing a light bulb, but far more hands-on and sooty. Once the lamps are cleaned, they are refilled with fresh, gold and green olive oil from a larger storage amphora. This isn't the extra virgin stuff you'd use on your salad. This is the lower grade, the lampanti oil, literally meaning lamp oil. It's cheaper, but it still carries that faint, pleasant, grassy aroma that will permeate the house. As the day goes on, as the first lamp is lit, the house begins to wake up in its gentle glow. In the kitchen, its light reflects off the shiny bronze of cooking pots as the breakfast porridge, the pulse, is warmed. In the atrium, the master of the house, the paterfamilias, receives his clients in the morning ritual of salutatio. The light here is important. It needs to be respectable. He might have a slightly nicer bronze lamp for this occasion, something that projects a bit of status, its flame steady and bright, illuminating serious faces discussing business and politics. The lamp is part of the performance of power, even at this early hour. As the day progresses, the lamps are mostly extinguished, saved for the night, but they're always on standby. If you need to duck into a windowless storage room to grab a jar of preserved fish or a new tunic, you grab a lamp. Its light pushes back the absolute blackness of those interior spaces, revealing skittering insects and the looming shadows of amphorae. It's your flashlight. If a sudden rain shower darkens the sky, at noon, someone might light a lamp to continue reading or sewing. The line between day and night isn't defined by a clock, it's defined by the sun, and the lamp is your tool to bend that rule, just a little. But it's at dusk that the lamp truly comes into its own. As the sun vanishes, the lapidarius makes his rounds in earnest. One by one, the lamps throughout the house are lit. Their light is soft, wavering, and utterly incapable of filling a large room. This dictates everything. Life congregates. The family doesn't scatter to different, brightly lit rooms. Everyone gathers in one or two spaces, usually the dining room, the triclinium, for the main evening meal. You recline on couches, and the light from several lamps placed on low tables or stands creates a small, intimate world. This is where stories are told, gossip is exchanged, and philosophy is debated. The flickering light plays on the faces of your companions. making expressions seem more dramatic, laughter lines deeper. It's a naturally cozy atmosphere, forced upon you by technology, and it makes social bonds incredibly strong. You are literally all in the same light. And then, eventually, it's time to sleep. You take a lamp to guide your way to your bedroom. You might have a small, simple lamp specifically for this purpose, a cubicularis. You place it on a stand, and its light is just enough to undress by. Before you blow it out, or more likely, pinch the wick with damp fingers, you take one last look around your room. The shadows are deep and mysterious. A hanging cloak looks like a lurking figure. The sound of the family dog shifting in another room is amplified by the darkness. The lamp's flame is your last bastion against the primal unknown of the night. You snuff it, and the darkness doesn't just appear, it rushes in, total and complete. You are alone in the black, listening to the sounds of the house settling, the world outside your door now entirely given over to the night, waiting for the lapidarius to start the whole cycle over again at dawn. That simple, mass-produced clay lamp from the workshop, the one you'd buy by the dozen, was a miracle of accessibility. But it was also a blank slate, a lump of clay waiting for a story. And in the ancient world, stories weren't just for scrolls or campfire tales. They were for everything. They were woven into textiles, painted on vases, carved into stone, and, most intimately, pressed into the very thing that lit your home. The lamp was more than a tool. It was a pocket-sized gallery, a personal talisman, a piece of propaganda, and sometimes, a little private joke, all glowing in the palm of your hand. You're no longer just buying light. You're choosing the imagery that will dance on your walls every night. It all begins, once again, with the mold. The artisan who carves the original design into the stone or terracotta mold isn't he just a laborer? He's a storyteller with a very small canvas. His tools are fine, sharp points, and his medium is negative space. Every line he carves away will become a raised line on the finished lamp. This requires a steady hand and a mind that thinks in reverse. He might be copying a popular motif from a temple frieze or a famous painting, miniaturizing grand art for the common person's home. A myth known to every citizen becomes a personal possession. You could own Hercules and his 12 labors. You could have Zeus transforming into a shower of gold. You could have Odysseus lashed to the mast of his ship, his body straining towards the deadly song of the sirens, a dramatic scene playing out on your dinner table between the olives and the cheese. But it wasn't all highbrow mythology. The range of designs is a hilarious and fascinating window into the ancient mind. You have the utterly practical, a lamp decorated with a gladiator's helmet or a ship, perhaps indicating the profession of the owner. You have the natural world. Dolphins, eagles, roosters, and grapes were endlessly popular. You have the comical, caricature faces with enormous noses and googly eyes, theatrical masks of tragedy and comedy frozen in exaggerated expressions. And then you have the specific. There is a whole category of lamps featuring pygmies battling cranes, a popular and apparently side-splittingly funny trope in the Roman world. Imagine settling down for a romantic evening, lighting your lamp, and the walls are suddenly adorned with tiny, cartoonish figures waging war against large birds. Comedy truly is timeless. One of the most common and enduring motifs was the radiant crown of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. It's a beautifully poetic idea. You light a lamp, and its flame ignites a representation of the sun itself, creating a tiny, conquered sun right there in your house. It's a symbol of hope, of order over chaos, of light's eternal victory over darkness. Other popular symbols were the crescent moon and the star, attributes of the goddess Diana, offering protection through the night. A lamp like this wasn't just providing light. It was a form of prayer, a protective charm against the very real terrors that the darkness was thought to hold. You were literally pushing back the evil spirits with a blessed flame. Then there's the category that makes modern archaeologists either blush or chuckle. The erotic lamp. The Romans had a far more straightforward and less prudish attitude toward sex than many subsequent cultures, and it was a common theme in their art. Lamps included. These weren't necessarily hidden away in shame. They were often just part of the decor. Historians still argue whether these were simply a reflection of a more open culture, used in bedrooms to set a mood, or if they had a more specific apotropaic function, the belief that depicting such powerful life-creating acts could magically ward off evil. Maybe it was a bit of both. Either way, it adds a whole new layer of meaning to the phrase "a little night light." And then there are the truly bizarre ones that defy easy explanation. There's a famous type of lamp known as the grillos or grillas, which features a weird, composite face made up of other, smaller parts of face whose eyes are also smaller faces, or whose beard is made of tiny animals. It's surreal, like something from a psychedelic dream. Was it just a visual pun? A good luck charm? An ancient meme that we've simply lost the context for? We have no idea, but holding one, you get the sense that the ancient sense of humor could be just as weird and abstract as our own. So, when you light your lamp each evening, you're not just illuminating a room, you're activating a narrative. The flickering flame brings the raised images to life, making the chariot of Apollo seem to race, making the gladiator's sword arms seem to thrust. You are choosing the stories you want to live with, the gods you want to invite into your home, the jokes you want to see in the dim light. That simple clay dish becomes a conversation piece, a statement of faith, a burst of laughter, or a private comfort. It is, in the end, a mirror. The images we choose to surround ourselves with in our darkest hours say everything about who we are, what we fear, and what we hope for. The ancient Romans hoped for a lot of things, it seems, and they weren't afraid to put it all on a lamp. That little lamp on your table, with its carefully chosen design and steady flame, feels like a self-contained universe, but its existence, its very ability to push back the night, is the end product of a vast, sprawling, and surprisingly sophisticated economic network. The glow on your wall is the final, quiet echo of a process that begins under the brutal Mediterranean sun. In the silver-green canopies of countless olive groves, you aren't just pouring oil into a lamp, you're pouring the labor of farmers, the cunning of merchants, the muscle of sailors, and the entire agricultural rhythm of the ancient world into a tiny clay reservoir. This isn't just about light, it's about liquid capital. Your journey begins in the grove. It's autumn, and the air is crisp but the sun is still strong. You're not a wealthy landowner, you're a small-scale farmer, and these gnarled, ancient trees are your lifeblood. Harvesting olives is back-breaking work. Some farmers beat the branches with long poles, letting the fruit rain down onto cloths spread beneath the trees. Others, more carefully, hand-pick them. Your hands are stained purple-black from the bruising fruit, and the smell is sharp, bitter, and green. This isn't the pleasant aroma of the oil you'll eventually burn. This is the raw, vegetal scent of potential. The olives are gathered into baskets and taken to the pressing facility, the traptum, as quickly as possible. Time is the enemy. Left to sit, they'll oxidize and the oil will turn rancid. The traptum is a noisy, messy place. The central feature is a large, crushing basin made of stone, with a central post and a massive, horizontal crushing stone that is rolled around by a donkey or a couple of slaves. You pour the olives into the basin, and the great stone wheel trundles over them, slowly crushing them into a thick, pungent paste. This is the first pressing. The paste is then gathered and spread onto woven mats maybe made of hemp or esparto grass, which are stacked high. Then, the immense pressure is applied. This could be done with a large, weighted lever press, a screw press, a later Roman innovation, or even just a giant stone weight. You watch as the golden green liquid, cloudy with particulates, weeps from the mats and runs into a collecting channel. This first cold pressing yields the finest oil, the oleum flows, flower of the oil. This is the stuff you'd use for cooking, for anointing your body, for dressing your finest salads. It's too valuable, too pure, to burn. But the pressed paste, the emerca, still holds treasure. The mats are taken down, the paste is mixed with hot water, and it's pressed again, and then sometimes a third time. Each subsequent pressing yields a lower grade of oil, darker, more acidic, and cloudier. The final, lowest grade is what you're after for your lamp. This is the oleum, Lampadus lamp oil. It's the dregs, the bottom of the barrel. It might still have a hint of that pleasant olive scent, but it's also got a sharper, more acrid note. It's the ancient equivalent of using the cheapest, lowest octane fuel, but it's cheap and it burns. This grading was crucial. A wealthy Roman would no more burn fine oleum flows in his lamp than you would light your bedroom with a bottle of extra virgin olive oil. It would be grotesquely wasteful. Now, this lamp oil has to move. If you're a farmer near the coast, you might sell your oil to a local merchant who fills amphorae, those distinctive, pointy-bottomed clay jars with your product. They're sealed with a clay stopper and pitch, and then the real adventure begins. They are loaded onto a merchant ship, a corvita, a tubby, slow, sailing vessel that hugs the coastline. For months, this oil, pressed from your olives, sloshes around in the dark, hot hold of a ship, traveling across the wine-dark sea. It's traded in bustling ports like Ostia or Piraeus, sold by the amphora to oil merchants in cities. Historians still argue whether the massive scale of olive cultivation was driven more by the demand for food-grade oil or by the insatiable need for lamp fuel. It was likely both, a symbiotic demand that fueled entire regional economies. In the city, a specialized merchant, an Ungentarius, might sell the oil from his shop. You, a city dweller with no olive trees of your own, would bring your lamp and a small coin to have it filled, or you'd buy a small jug of oil to keep at home. That single lampful of oil represents an incredible journey, from a sun-drenched grove, to a noisy press, across treacherous seas, through a bustling market, and finally, into your home. You strike a spark, touch it to the wick, and the flame that blooms is the final, brilliant consumption of all that effort. It's the combustion of an entire economic system, and as it burns, it doesn't just release light, it releases the faint, ghostly smell of 1,000 distant orchards, a final olfactory memory of its long, liquid journey to your table. The sun has finally surrendered, dipping below the horizon and taking its blanket of light with it. In the city, this isn't the gentle fading of a rural twilight. It's a hard, fast transition. The grand public spaces, the forums, the agras, the wide colonnaded streets don't just get darker. They become vast, empty canyons of shadow, their grandeur now tinged with menace. The comfortable, intimate pools of light from individual homes are private affairs, locked behind doors. The public realm belongs to the night, or rather, it would, if not for him. You're about to join the most underappreciated, essential, and frankly hazardous shift worker in the ancient world, the lamplighter. His job is to fight a daily, losing battle against the absolute darkness of the urban night, and he is your last line of defense between a civilized evening stroll and a panicked stumble through a pitch-black labyrinth. You meet him as he reports for duty at a municipal building or a temple precinct, collecting his tools for the evening. There's no uniform, just the practical, worn clothing of a laborer. His most important piece of equipment is a small, portable lamp of his own, often with a covered top or a shuttered side to protect the flame from the wind his own little moving sun. He might have a ladder for the higher fixtures, a long-spouted oil flask for refills, and a hook tool for trimming wicks. His first task is the lighting of the public lamps. These weren't streetlights as we know them. They were often simply niches built into the walls of important public buildings, temples, or near major intersections. Some wealthier cities might have had proper lanterns on posts, but they were rare. His job is to go from niche to niche, carefully lighting each one, ensuring the oil level is good and the wick is properly set. The light he provides is pathetic. Let's be absolutely clear about this. It's not illumination, it's suggestion. A single olive oil lamp placed in a wall niche might cast a faint, flickering glow for a radius of, say, 10 feet. Beyond that, the darkness is absolute. His work doesn't light the streets. It places a series of faint, widely spaced beacons in an ocean of black. Their purpose is not to show you the way, but to show you that you are on a way. They mark a path, confirm the location of a crossroads, signal the presence of a shrine. They are psychological comfort more than practical aid. Walking from one pool of light to the next is an act of faith. You hurry through the terrifying void between them, your ears straining for any sound, your heart pounding, until you burst into the next tiny, wavering island of safety, greeted by the faint, smoky smell of burning olive oil. Then you gather your courage for the next sprint into the unknown. This makes the lamplighter's round a tense affair. He is a moving target, his own lamp making him perfectly visible to anyone or anything lurking in the shadows. He's carrying valuable tools and oil. He is the epitome of an easy mark. He has to have the situational awareness of a modern knight, shift security guard, knowing which corners were trouble, which alleys to avoid. He'd likely work with a partner, not for company, but for basic safety. There's also the constant, mundane danger of the job itself, climbing ladders in the dark, handling hot ceramic and burning oil, the risk of spilling and starting a fire. His is a life of calculated risk, a daily dance with disaster for a meager wage. But his role goes beyond just lighting lamps. He is the eyes of the city at its most vulnerable time. A broken water pipe discovered on his rounds, a fire starting in a baker's oven after hours, a suspicious group gathering where they shouldn't be. He was often the first to know. He might be expected to raise the alarm. In a very real sense, he was a part of the city's nervous system, a low-level sensor patrolling the periphery. Historians still argue whether these men were municipal employees or private contractors hired by neighborhood associations or wealthy benefactors. The truth was probably a mix, meaning his pay, his status, and the reliability of his service could vary wildly depending on what part of town you were in. A wealthy district might have well-maintained lamps lit promptly every night. A poor neighborhood might be left in the dark. And then there's the dawn round. His work isn't done when the sun comes up. As the sky begins to lighten, he must make his way back along his route, this time to extinguish each lamp. This is where the quirky, fringe part of his job comes in. What does he do with the leftover oil? Officially, it might have been returned to a central store. Unofficially, it was a perk of the job. That half amphora of leftover, partially burned lamp oil collected over his entire route could be his little bonus. He could use it himself, or he could sell it on the side. It was a small-scale, predictable bit of corruption that everyone probably turned a blind eye to, because who would want the job otherwise? After extinguishing the lamps, he might do minor maintenance, cleaning out the soot, replacing cracked wicks, reporting fixtures that needed repair. So as you settle into your home for the evening, your own private lamp casting its cozy glow, spare a thought for the man outside. He is out there in the consuming dark, moving from one faint beacon to the next, a lonely firefly in a vast, sleeping city. His light is feeble, his job is dangerous, and his contribution is instantly forgotten the moment the sun rises. But for those few hours of deepest night, for the soul who absolutely must cross the city, he is the difference between being utterly lost and having the faintest, most fragile thread of light to follow. He is the keeper of the civic flame, and his rounds are a silent, nightly prayer against the chaos that waits just beyond the light. You've lit your lamp. Its primary job is done. A circle of warm, if wavering, light now defines your world, pushing the pressing, absolute blackness back to the edges of the room. It's your sun, your star, your personal slice of daytime. But to think of it as just a source of light is to severely underestimate the creativity and the sheer weirdness of the ancient mind. That little clay dish, with its reservoir of fuel and its steady flame, was the ancient equivalent of a multi-tool. Once it had banished the immediate terror of the dark, it was promptly put to work on a dozen other odd jobs, some practical, some magical, and some that blur the line between the two entirely. Your lamp isn't just for seeing, it's for doing. The most straightforward secondary use is heat. You're sitting in your triclinium, the evening chill starting to seep through the walls, the braziers are out in the main atrium, and it's too much trouble to light one just for your small gathering, so you huddle a little, closer to the low table. On it are 3, maybe 4 lamps, all burning. Their collective output is pitiful in terms of lumens, but it's not nothing in terms of British thermal units. That tiny, open flame is putting out a surprising amount of heat. You cup your hands around it, not just to shield it from a draft, but to steal its warmth. It's a personal, intimate heat source. You might even use it for a tiny, specific task, warming a cup of wine just a little, taking the edge off the chill, or gently heating a dab of perfume-soaked wax to release its scent into the room. It's your microwave, your space heater, and your aromatherapy diffuser, all in one. Then there's timekeeping. You don't have a watch. You don't have a clock. The sun is gone. How do you measure the passage of the night? You use your lamp. The most basic method is simply to note the oil level. You filled the lamp to a certain point when you lit it. As the night wears on, you can see the golden pool slowly sinking down the sides of the clay reservoir. It's a crude hourglass, burning instead of flowing. But someone, of course, had to go and engineer it. Enter the graduated lamp. Some Roman lamps have a series of faint, incised lines on the inside, marking out rough increments. You could theoretically say, "I'll meet you when the oil reaches the 3rd line." There were even more elaborate attempts, like lamps with a small, weighted float that would sink as the oil was consumed, causing a little chain to slowly lift a counterweight. That would eventually ring a tiny bell. Did it work reliably? Almost certainly not. Was it a brilliant, Rube Goldberg-esque attempt to solve a problem? Absolutely. It was the ancient version of a timer you'd set for your pizza. If your pizza took 4 hours to bake and your timer was powered by salad dressing. Now we drift from the practical into the other. The flame itself was hypnotic, a living, dancing thing in a still world. It was a natural focal point for divination, for seeing things that weren't there. Lycnomancy, or lamp divination, was a practiced art. You would sit alone in a dark room, stare into the flame, and wait for shapes to form in the sooty smoke or in the flickering patterns of light. You might see the face of a future lover, the shape of a coming battle, or the approval of a god. The flicker itself was a message. A sudden, sputtering dance might mean a spirit was passing through the room. The lamp was a window, and you were peering through it into the future. This leads directly into its use in magic and protection. The light was a weapon against the things that hated it. Spells often involved lamps. You might inscribe a curse onto a lead tablet, but to activate it to send it into the supernatural realm, You'd hold it in the flame of a lamp, letting the smoke carry your malevolent wishes to the gods of the underworld. Conversely, to protect a newborn child from evil spirits, you might keep a lamp burning in the room for its first few nights. The light would create a sacred, protected space. Amulets were sometimes warmed in the lamp as flame to charge them with its protective power. The lamp was a battery for magic. And then there's the truly fringe stuff. Historians still argue whether the common practice of using certain smoky fuels or adding substances like sulfur to lamp oil was a deliberate attempt to create insect repellent. The theory goes that the smelly smoke would drive away mosquitoes and other biting insects, making a summer evening on the patio more bearable. It's a great idea, in theory. In practice, you'd probably just trade itchy bites for stinging eyes and a choking cough. But the intention was there. Your lamp was also your ancient citronella candle. So, your lamp is never just a lamp. It's a clock, a heater, a ritual object, a protective talisman, and a bug zapper. Its light is just the beginning of its service. Every flicker is a potential signal, every drop of consumed oil a measured moment in time, every wisp of smoke a carrier of prayers or curses. It is the most versatile tool in your house. A jack of all trades whose primary function is almost the least interesting thing about it. You don't just look at it, you listen to it, you read it, you use it. It is, in every sense, the hub of your nocturnal world. The night in your home eventually ends, the lamp is snuffed out, the last whispers of conversation fade, and sleep claims everyone in the house. But for the ancient mind, the journey of the soul did not end with the closing of eyes. Death was not an end, but a departure for a long, dark, and uncertain voyage to another world. And just as you wouldn't send a traveler off into the wilderness without a light, you wouldn't send your loved one into the greatest unknown without providing them the means to see. The lamp, your faithful companion in life, had one final, profound duty to perform. It was to become a grave good, a companion for the dead, its tiny flame a fragile beacon in the absolute darkness of the afterlife. You are part of the funerary procession. The body has been prepared, anointed with oils, and wrapped. The mood is solemn, but it's also deeply practical. This is a send-off, and you need to pack for the trip. Among the items being carried to the tomb or the pyre are objects the deceased will need. A coin for Karen, the ferryman of the river Styx, a small vessel of food and drink for sustenance, and a lamp. Always a lamp. This isn't a new, fancy lamp. It's often their lamp, the one they used every night, the one whose clay is blackened from soot, whose shape is familiar to their touch. There's a powerful intimacy in this. You are giving them a piece of their own home, a fragment of their nightly routine, to comfort them in a place of utter unfamiliarity. If the body is to be cremated, the lamp might be placed on the pyre itself. As the flames consume the body, they also consume the lamp, its clay hardening and blackening further, its oil fueling the inferno for a brief moment. It is sent with them, transformed by the same fire. In inhumation burials, where the body is laid in a tomb or a simple grave, the lamp is placed carefully beside the body, often near the head or the feet. It might be filled with oil, a fresh wick inserted, ready to be lit. Sometimes, it's even left lit at the mouth of the tomb before it is sealed, a final, flickering farewell from the living world that slowly suffocates as the oxygen runs out. The act of placing it there is a silent prayer. May you see in the darkness. May you not be afraid. The imagery on these funerary lamps is never random. This is where the mold decorations from the workshop take on a deeper, more potent significance. A lamp depicting a ship isn't just a pretty picture. It's a wish for a safe voyage across the waters of the underworld. A lamp showing a victorious gladiator is a hope for triumph over the terrors that may lie ahead. Common symbols were the owl, a bird of the night, or a cock, whose crow was believed to have the power to chase away evil spirits. But the most powerful and common motif was the reset. To our eyes, it's just a flower. To them, it was a symbol of the regenerative power of life, a promise of the afterlife, a fragile hope for beauty in the realm of dust. They were sending their loved ones off with a symbol of life blooming in the land of the dead. This practice opens a door to one of the more fascinating and slightly spooky, fringe aspects of ancient belief. The idea that the lamp could be a conduit. The flame was a living thing, a point of contact between the world of the living and the world of the dead. There are accounts of graveside rituals where families would return to the tomb and light the lamp left within, believing its flame could carry their messages to the deceased, or even allow the spirit to momentarily manifest. The lamp was a hotline to the other side. To let the lamp go out forever was to sever that connection completely. Keeping the memory alive was, quite literally, linked to keeping a flame alive. Historians still argue whether these lamps were purely symbolic, a beautiful, metaphorical gesture, or if people genuinely believed the deceased could and would use them in a literal underworld. Was it like packing a suitcase for a trip you knew the traveler couldn't actually take? Or was it a true act of provisioning? The answer is probably as varied as the people themselves. For some, it was tradition. For others, it was a profound article of faith. The line between symbol and function blurs completely in the face of such overwhelming grief, and hoped so. The next time you see a simple clay lamp in a museum case, unearthed from a tomb, don't just see an artifact. See a packed bag. See a final, loving act of provision. See a family's deepest fear that their loved one would be lost, alone, and in the dark, in their desperate, hopeful solution. A tiny, clay sun, filled with golden oil, placed in their hands for the longest night of all. It is one of the most human objects ever created, a testament to our refusal to let those we love face the darkness alone, even when we can no longer follow. For centuries, the basic shape of the lamp was a quiet, unremarkable constant, an open, shallow dish with a pinched lip for the wick. It was functional, it worked, but functionality is the enemy of complacency, and the ancient world was full of tinkerers, of engineers who looked at a good thing and thought, yes, but how can I make it better? The evolution of the lamp wasn't just about prettier pictures pressed into clay. It was a relentless, incremental pursuit of efficiency, safety, and control. This isn't a story of a sudden, brilliant invention. It's a story of slow, meticulous refinement. You're about to witness the ancient equivalent of a software update, a series of tiny tweaks that, over generations, perfected the art of holding a flame. The first major leap was so simple it's genius. Closing the dish. The old, open lamps were spill hazards waiting to happen. A sudden bump, a curious pet, a child running by, a single accident could send burning oil across a table or onto a floor mat, and suddenly your cozy evening turns into a full-blown domestic disaster. So, someone had the idea to fold the top over. They took the open dish and essentially pulled the edges up and in, creating a closed body with a single, smaller hole in the center for pouring in the oil, and leaving only the spout, or nozzle, open for the wick. This was a revolution in home safety. It turned the lamp from an open pan of fire into a sealed container. You could knock it over, and while it might go out, it likely wouldn't set your entire house ablaze. It was the invention of the safety lamp. This new, closed body design, which the Romans perfected, came with a cascade of other improvements. That central filling hole needed a cover to prevent evaporation and keep dust and bugs out. So, they added a little disc-shaped lid, sometimes attached with a small chain to the lamp's handle to keep it from getting lost. It was a tiny detail, but it spoke of a new level of thoughtful design. Then there was the handle. Early lamps had no handles at all. You just picked them up by the body, often burning your fingers on the hot clay. The solution, a small, graceful loop handle, was added opposite the nozzle. Now you could carry a lit lamp from room to room without performing a frantic, hot potato juggling act. It was the difference between carrying a lit candle and carrying a flashlight. But the real, engineering focus zeroed in on the business end, the nozzle. This is where the flame lives, and its design dictated everything about the lamp's performance. A short, wide nozzle gave a broader, brighter flame, but it was also thirstier, gulping down oil at an unsustainable rate. A long, narrow nozzle conserved fuel and produced a more directed beam of light, ancient task lighting, but it was more prone to clogging with carbon buildup from the wick. Lamp makers experimented endlessly with the length, width, and angle of the nozzle, trying to find the perfect balance between light output and fuel economy. Some nozzles were even upward dangled, supposedly to allow for a cleaner burn. This is where we get the truly elegant volute lamp, a Roman design where the nozzle isn't just a plain tube. It's decorated with ornate, scrolling volutes that resemble a stylized flower or a seashell. It's beautiful, but it's not just for show. Historians still argue whether those volutes had a functional purpose, perhaps acting as a kind of heat sink to dissipate warmth away from the wick and prevent the oil from overheating, or if they were purely decorative, a status symbol for your wick. Either way, it represents the peak of the lampmaker's art, a perfect marriage of form and function. And then there are the truly bizarre experimental models that showcase ancient ingenuity at its most enthusiastic. Lamps with multiple nozzles, for 2, 3, or even a dozen flames. Was this for more light? Or was it a purely baller move to show you could afford to burn that much oil at once? Lamps with submerged wick channels, a complex internal plumbing system meant to somehow improve efficiency. There was even a type with a small, built-in spatula on a chain, presumably for the high-tech task of wick trimming, without needing a separate tool. Most of these weirdos were likely expensive failures, the ancient equivalent of a gadget from a Skymall catalog. Clever, but ultimately unnecessary. The simple, closed-body, single-nozzle lamp had already achieved near perfection. It was reliable, safe, efficient, and cheap to make. Why complicate it? The best kind of engineering is often the most boring, the kind you never even notice, because it just works, night after night, for 1,000 years. From the smoky, intimate corners of the home to the bustling, dangerous streets, the lamp has been your practical companion. But now, we step across a different threshold. Not the door of a house, but the towering, imposing entrance of a temple. Here, the lamp sheds its mundane skin entirely. Here, it is no longer just a tool. It is an offering, a prayer made visible, a tiny, dancing piece of the divine. The same clay, the same oil, the same flame, but the context transforms it into something utterly sacred. You are leaving the world of men and entering a space where light isn't for seeing, but for believing. This is where the lamp becomes a beacon for faith. Your first stop is a grand Roman temple, maybe dedicated to Vesta, goddess of the hearth, or to the imperial cult. The air is thick with the smell of incense and roasting meat from sacrifices. It's noisy, a crowded, public space, but your eyes are drawn to the statue of the god, and at its feet, or on a special altar, burns an eternal flame. This isn't a metaphor. This is a literal, never-ending fire, tended by priests or virgin priestesses whose sacred duty was to ensure it never, ever went out. The extinction of the flame was a national catastrophe, a sign of divine displeasure that required frantic rituals of atonement. Your small household lamp is a descendant of this great, holy fire. When you light your lamp at home, you are kindling a tiny spark of that divine, perpetual flame. You are bringing a piece of the God's presence into your own dwelling. The light in your home is now connected to the light in the temple, a sacred network of flames binding the community to its gods. The fuel for these sacred flames was a matter of ritual purity. You couldn't just pour any old fish oil into Vesta's fire. The choice of olive oil was itself a religious act. It was pure, it burned cleanly, and it came from the blessed, cultivated olive tree, a gift from the goddess Athena herself. There were often weirdly specific rules. The oil had to be, from the first pressing, the purest oleum flows. The wicks had to be made from a particular type of linen, and the lamps themselves were often made of precious metals, bronze, silver, or even gold, reflecting the glory of the deity. This was a luxury the average person couldn't afford, which is why making a votive offering of a simple clay lamp was such a powerful act of devotion. You were giving the god what you could, your light. Now, you follow the lamp into a different kind of sacred space, a Jewish home on the eve of the Sabbath. Here, the lighting of the lamps is not performed by a priest in a grand temple, but by the mother of the household. It is a domestic ritual, but no less holy for it. As the last light of Friday fades, she lights at least 2 lamps, reciting a blessing. This act formally welcomes the Sabbath, the day of rest. The light is a symbol of joy, of peace, of creation itself. It is forbidden to light a fire on the Sabbath, so these lamps, lit beforehand, must burn through the entire night. Their light sanctifies the home, transforming it from an ordinary dwelling into a miniature temple for the duration of the holy day. The lamp here is a marker of sacred time, its steady flame a guardian of tradition and a center of family unity. This tradition finds its most magnificent expression in the great Temple of Jerusalem, before its destruction, with the legendary menorah, the 7-branched golden lampstand. Its design was explicitly revealed by God, according to Scripture, and it was kept burning with the purest olive oil. It was not just a lamp, it was a symbol of the divine presence and of the nation itself. Historians still argue whether the menorah's design was purely symbolic or if its specific shape had a functional purpose in distributing heat and light. Its light was so iconic that it became the definitive symbol of Judaism. Long after the temple was gone, the humble clay lamp in a Jewish home was a tiny, everyday echo of that great, golden light. And then, the lamp walks into the catacombs. You are now with the early Christians, a persecuted sect meeting in secret, underground. The world above is hostile. Down here, in the cool, silent darkness of the tombs, your lamp does double duty. Its first job is brutally practical, so you don't bash your head on a low rock ceiling. Its second job is spiritual. The flickering light illuminates simple paintings on the walls, a shepherd carrying a lamb, a fish, a loaf of bread. These were secret symbols, a coded language of faith. In this context, the lamp takes on a new, powerful meaning. Christ was called the light of the world. The lamp becomes a direct symbol of him. Its flame pushing back the physical darkness of the catacombs was a perfect metaphor for his teachings, pushing back the spiritual darkness of the world. Lighting a lamp was an act of defiance and hope. It was a declaration that the light would not be overcome by the darkness, no matter how deep that darkness seemed. So, the lamp becomes a unifying thread through faiths. In the temple, it is a state-sponsored eternal flame. In the Jewish home, it is a domestic sanctifier of time. In the catacombs, it is a symbol of a persecuted hope. Different contexts, different meanings, but the same fundamental object, a vessel for a flame. It proves that humanity has always looked into the heart of a fire and seen something more than just combustion. We see purity, divinity, presence, and hope. We see a piece of the eternal, captured in a simple dish of clay, and we offer it back to the divine, again and again, night after night, prayer after prayer. The world of the home, the temple, the city, these are spheres of relative order, where the night, though dark, is a managed affair. But now we follow the lamp to the very edge of that ordered world, to the place where the map ends and the unknown begins, the Roman frontier. You are no longer a civilian. You are a legionary, stationed at a fort like Vindolanda in the damp, cold north of Britannia, or a dusty outpost along the Euphrates. Here, the darkness is different. It's not just an absence of light, it's a presence. It is the domain of unseen enemies, of wolves, of spirits, and of a homesickness so profound it feels like a physical ache. And in this place, your standard issue, mass-produced clay lamp, the Lucerna Militaris, becomes more than a tool. It is your tiny, flickering piece of Rome, a fragment of civilization you clutch against the vast, wild dark. Your issue lamp is nothing special. It's a classic Roman closed body type, probably made in a mold press right near the fort by a local potter supplying the army. It's functional, sturdy, and utterly devoid of the fancy decorations you might see on a lamp in Pompeii. This is a tool of the trade, as essential as your pilum or your gladius. Its first job is brutally practical. The fort goes dark after Tuba calls the end of the watch. If you need to take a latrine break, you're not stumbling through the pitch-black barracks. You light your lamp. If you're on guard duty in a watchtower, you have one up there with you. Not so much to see the enemy approaching, a tiny flame would ruin your night vision, but to check the water clock, to read a posted order, or just to have a companion in the long cold hours. Its light is a psychological shield against the emptiness beyond the palisade. But the true value of the lamp reveals itself inside the barracks. This is where you, a soldier from perhaps Hispania or Syria, live with 7 other men in a cramped, damp room. The space is yours. It's your home. And when the shutters are closed against the northern chill or the desert wind, the world shrinks to the aid of you and the light of your lamps. This is where the lamp becomes a social center. You huddle around it to mend your torn tunic, to clean your equipment, to gamble with dice, writing your scores on a wooden tablet. You use its heat to warm your hands. The smell of burning olive oil mixes with the smell of wool, leather, and men, the smell of the army. In this tiny pool of light, you are not just soldiers, you are a community. You tell stories of home, of women, of better food. You complain about the centurion. The lamp is the hearth round which the soldier's family gathers. This is where we get one of the most human artifacts ever found, the Vindolanda tablets. These thin, postcard-sized pieces of wood, written in ink, are the letters and records of the soldiers stationed at that remote fort. And you can bet your denarius that most of them were written by the light of a lamp like yours. A soldier requests leave, another writes home for socks and underwear. They are mundane, beautiful, and heartbreaking. The lamp illuminated these tiny acts of defiance against the isolation, the light that allowed them to maintain their humanity and their connections across hundreds of miles. And of course, soldiers being soldiers, they personalized their gear. Your lamp might be plain when issued, but you might carve your name into it, or your cohort and century, lest someone accidentally borrow it. You might scratch a crude good luck charm into the clay. Phallus was a popular choice for warding off evil. Historians still argue whether soldiers on the frontier used local, often inferior fuels like animal fat out of necessity. When the olive oil supply chain was interrupted, suffering through the smoky smell for the sake of a little light, it is a small detail that speaks volumes about the reality of military life. You may do. Then there's the quirky, fringe belief. The lamp was a connection to home, but it was also a potential weapon. There are accounts, though debated, of lamps being used in a particularly nasty form of psychological warfare. The idea was to fill a lamp with not just oil, but with oil mixed with some noxious substance like the venom from a local snake or a toxic plant. You'd then leave it burning in a place the enemy would find it. They'd pick it up, the heat would cause the poison to vaporize, and the fumes would, well, the theory was that they would cause panic, sickness, or even death. It was an ancient chemical weapon. There's no solid proof it worked, but the fact that someone thought of it shows the lamp was seen as more than just a light. It was a vessel, and what you put in that vessel could be as benign as olive oil or as sinister as poison. So your lamp on the frontier is your clock, your heater, your scribe's light, your gaming table, and your connection to the world you left behind. It is the centurion of your personal darkness, maintaining order in your 8-man piece of the empire. Its flame is a tiny, defiant echo of the great fires of Rome, thousands of miles away. You trim its wick, you fill it with precious oil, and you guard it, because when the wind howls outside and the watchword has been passed, its fragile, steady glow is the only thing standing between you and the complete, overwhelming blackness of the edge of the world. The fort on the frontier is a world of shouted orders, clanging metal, and physical endurance. But the lamp's light doesn't just illuminate the rough hands of a soldier mending his gear. It also falls, softly, upon the furrowed brow of a scholar. The flame that guards the empire's edges is the very same flame that fuels its mind. Now, we follow that pool of light into a different kind of room, a private study, a library, or the corner of a wealthy patron's house. The sounds change. The stomping of boots is replaced by the soft rustle of a papyrus scroll being unrolled. The grunts of labor become the faint, whispered murmur of a man reading to himself. You are no longer a legionary. You are a scholar, a philosopher, a poet, or a student. And the night is your sanctuary. The lamp is your sun, and under its glow, you are building empires of thought. Your workday is governed by the sun, just like everyone else's. But your real work begins when everyone else's ends. The household settles, the city's noise dulls to a murmur, and the distractions of the day finally fade. This is when you can think. This is when you can read, write, and calculate without interruption. You light your lamp, perhaps a better quality one with a longer nozzle, for a more focused beam of light, and you set to work. The light is terrible. Let's not romanticize this. It's a flickering, straining, dim thing. You are, quite literally, squinting in the dark. Your face is close to the scroll, the light dancing over the elegant, handwritten Greek or Latin script. Your eyes tire quickly. Headaches are a professional hazard. The smoke, though lessened by good olive oil, still leaves a faint, sooty film on everything, including the scroll you're trying to preserve. This is the great, unspoken paradox of ancient scholarship. The very tool that enabled it also slowly degraded it. The smoke from 1,000 nights of study contributes to the slow browning and brittling of the precious texts future generations would fight to preserve. You are likely wealthy, or at least supported by a wealthy patron. The oil you burn, the papyrus you write on, the books you own, these are luxuries. A student might huddle over a single, shared lamp in a drafty rented room, copying notes onto a wax tablet by its meager light. But an established scholar like Seneca or Cicero, he had a proper setup. His lamp might be of bronze, a status symbol reflecting the importance of the work being done under its light. He might have a scriptorium, a writing desk with a slanted top, and a stand specifically designed to hold the lamp at the perfect angle to illuminate his work, without casting his own hand's shadow across the page. This was the ancient equivalent of a high-end, ergonomic desk lamp. The pursuit of knowledge demanded not just mental focus, but physical innovation. And what are you working on? Maybe you're a Greek physician like Galen, trying to decipher the secrets of the human body by lamplight. Your diagrams of muscles and organs looking eerie and dramatic in the flickering glow. Perhaps you're an astronomer like Ptolemy, calculating the movements of the planets. Your charts and numbers covering the table. The lamp's flame, a tiny terrestrial star, helping you map the heavens. Or maybe you're a poet like Ovid, the isolation of the night fueling your verses about love and exile. The lamp is your solitary confidant, the only witness to your moments of frustration and breakthrough. It is the silent partner to all of classical thought. This is where we get a wonderfully quirky tidbit. The Roman Emperor Nero, a man not known for his scholarly moderation, was said to have used an emerald as a reading aid. Some accounts suggest he held it up to his eye to correct myopia, but the more fun theory, the one that involves our lamp, is that he used the concave emerald as a lens, holding it over the pages of a book to concentrate the lamplight into a brighter, more focused spot. It's almost certainly apocryphal, but it's a fantastic image. The most powerful man in the world, hunched over a scroll, using a priceless gemstone as a glorified reading light. It was the ancient, absurdist version of a high-intensity lead lamp. Historians still argue whether the famous lamp of Aristotle was a real, more efficient design or just a legendary metaphor for the burning quest for knowledge. The story goes that the philosopher designed a lamp that could burn for a full 24 hours, without refilling, a miraculous feat of engineering that would have been a godsend to any scholar. Was it a special enclosed design? A different wick material? A secret fuel mixture? We have no idea. But the fact that the story persisted shows how acutely the intellectual class felt the limitations of their primary tool. They were literally burning the midnight oil, and they desperately wanted a better way to do it. So you work, or after hour, the oil level in your lamp sinks. The characters on the page begin to swim before your tired eyes. The house is utterly silent around you. The only sounds are the faint hiss of the flame, the scratch of your stylus on wax, or the soft crackle of a papyrus scroll being re-rolled. You are alone with your thoughts, a single, conscious mind in a vast, sleeping empire, connected to the great chain of thinkers across time only by the words you are reading, and the words you are writing, all of it held in the world by a fragile, flickering flame. You are not just reading a book, you are keeping a vigil. The lamp is your companion in this vigil, burning down alongside your energy, a silent testament to the human need to push back not just the darkness of night, but the darkness of ignorance. And when you finally snuff it out, the ideas it helped foster continue to glow in the darkness of your mind long after the flame itself is gone. For centuries, that little clay lamp has been your workhorse. It's the thing you buy in bulk, the disposable light source that gets the job done without fuss or fanfare. It's the equivalent of the reliable, energy-efficient LED bulb you pick up at the hardware store. But in the ancient world, just like today, functionality was only half the story. The other half was flair. The other half was showing off, because once an object becomes common, it becomes a canvas for status. And so, we arrive at the lamp's final, glorious evolution, from a tool of necessity to a pure, unadulterated luxury item. You are about to leave the world of common clay behind and step into the realm of exquisite metals and brilliant glass, where the lamp stops being about seeing and starts being about being seen. Your first introduction to this rarefied world is bronze. You're in the villa of a wealthy merchant or a patrician. After dinner, a servant doesn't bring out another cheap terracotta lamp. He places a heavy, beautifully crafted bronze lamp on the table. The weight of it alone is a statement. It doesn't feel fragile. It feels permanent, valuable. The craftsmanship is impeccable. It might be shaped like a foot wearing a sandal, the wick emerging from the toe. It could be a fantastical sea creature, a dolphin arsing through waves, with the flame dancing from its blowhole. These weren't pressed in a mold. They were cast using the lost wax method, a complex, expensive process that resulted in a unique piece of art. The light from a bronze lamp isn't necessarily brighter, but it feels more important. It reflects off the polished metal surface, throwing soft, warm highlights around the room. It is, in every sense, a showpiece. But bronze was just the beginning. For the truly ostentatious, there was silver. A silver lamp was less about illumination and more about a blatant, glorious display of wealth. You're not lighting a room, you're lighting your money. A single silver lamp could cost as much as a small farm. It would be intricately engraved with mythological scenes, its handle perhaps inlaid with gold or a precious stone. It was the kind of object that would be listed in a will, bequeathed to a favored heir as a major asset. Lighting it was an event. The fuel would have to be the purest, finest, first-press olive oil to avoid tarnishing the precious metal with smoky impurities. The wick would be of the finest flax. Using a silver lamp was a performance of wealth, a signal that you could afford to burn a fortune literally right in front of your guest's eyes. Then there's the most ethereal and beautiful of all, the glass lamp. This was a later Roman innovation, and it must have seemed like pure magic. Imagine a lamp made not of opaque clay or metal, but of transparent or translucent blue, green, or amber glass. When unlit, it was a beautiful vessel, but when you lit the wick, the entire lamp would glow from within, transforming into a captured piece of amber, a solidified flame. The light it emitted was softer, more diffuse, and utterly enchanting. It had no soot, no smoke to stain its pristine walls. It was the clearest, cleanest light the ancient world could produce. But it was also terrifyingly fragile. A single clumsy servant could turn a small fortune into a pile of glittering shards in a heartbeat. Owning and using a glass lamp wasn't just about wealth. It was about having the controlled, orderly household where such incredible fragility could survive. It was the ultimate flex, Of course, the wealthy didn't stop at one fancy lamp. They had sets, they had lampstands made of carved marble or exotic wood. They had polycandelabrons or iron stands that held multiple lamps, often 5 or more, creating a chandelier effect that could actually fill a large room with light. This is where the ancient world came closest to our modern concept of a well-lit space. The ability to banish shadow from an entire triclinium was a power only the richest could wield. This obsession with luxury lighting leads us to one of history's most delightfully ridiculous anecdotes, Emperor Nero's rotating dining room. The historian Suetonius describes a ceiling in Nero's golden house that was like the heavens, with rotating panels that showered flowers and perfumes down on guests. But the best part? The main light source was a single, massive lamp in the center, representing the sun. Historians still argue whether this was a literal, mechanically rotating celestial ceiling or a poetic exaggeration. But the image is perfect. The ultimate luxury wasn't just a lamp that cost a lot, but a lamp that was the sun, in a room that was the universe, all for one man's dinner party. It was the most expensive night light in human history. And here lies the quirky, fringe debate that surrounds these luxury lamps. Were they actually used, or were they like the good china, brought out only for special occasions and otherwise kept safely in a chest? A bronze lamp, sure, but a delicate glass lamp or an incredibly valuable silver one? It's easy to imagine a wealthy matron insisting on the cheaper, safer clay lamps for everyday use, saving the precious ones for when company came. The luxury lamp, then, becomes almost purely symbolic. Its purpose is to be seen, to be admired, to be inventoried, more than it is to actually produce light. It is a sculpture that can, incidentally, hold a flame. So the humble lamp completes its journey. It starts as a hollowed-out stone, a tool for survival. It becomes a mass-produced commodity, lighting the homes of millions. And finally, it transcends its function entirely. It becomes art. It becomes treasure. It becomes a statement. That same simple principle of wick drawing fuel to a flame could be as cheap as dirt or more valuable than a human life. It reflected not just the light in the room, but the status of the person who owned it. In the end, the story of the luxury lamp is the same story we see today. Once we solve a basic need, we immediately set about making it beautiful, expensive, and exclusive. The light is the same. It's what holds the light that tells the real story. For over a millennium, the gentle, smoky glow of the olive oil lamp has been the undisputed champion of the night. It has been your sun, your guardian, your clock, and your confidant. Its reign has been long and glorious, woven into the very fabric of civilization from the forum to the frontier. But time, as it always does, moves forward. New ideas flicker on the horizon, not with the soft, warm light of olive oil, but with a different, harsher, and ultimately more efficient flame. The world is changing, and it's changing fast. You are living through the beginning of the end, witnessing the first flickers of a revolution that will, slowly but surely, consign your faithful clay companion to history. The age of the olive oil lamp is setting, and a new dawn of illumination is breaking. Whether you're ready for it or not, the challenge arrives not with a bang, but with a sputter and a distinctly unpleasant smell. Its name is tallow, and it's basically rendered animal fat. The technology is the candle. On the face of it, it seems like a step backward, a return to the smoky, greasy fuels of your prehistoric ancestors. And in many ways, it is. A tallow candle smells awful when it burns, a pungent, acrid odor that clings to clothes and hair. It produces a thick, black, greasy smoke that will coat your ceiling in soot far faster than olive oil ever did. Its light is often dimmer and more erratic, so why would anyone switch? For the same reason most technological shifts happen: convenience and cost. A candle is self-contained. It doesn't need a separate dish. It's easier to carry. You can stick it on a shelf, hold it in your hand, or carry it up a ladder without worrying about spilling burning liquid all over yourself. And for people living far from the olive groves of the Mediterranean, in the rainy forests of northern Europe or the misty highlands of Britain, animal fat was cheap, local, and readily available. Why import expensive lamp oil when you can just render down a cow? Then there's beeswax. This is the premium alternative, the luxury candle. It burns with a brilliant, clean, almost smokeless flame and emits a faint, honeyed sweetness instead of a foul stench. It is, in every way, superior to an olive oil lamp, except for one. It was prohibitively, astronomically expensive. A beeswax candle was a symbol of immense wealth, and, most importantly, of the Christian Church. Grand ceremonies and vast, new basilicas demanded brilliant, clean light. and beeswax candles provided it on a scale that oil lamps couldn't match. The church became a massive driver of the candle industry, creating a demand that eventually trickled down, making the technology more common and refined. The lamp, associated with the pagan gods of Rome, was now being literally outshone in the very houses of the new god. This technological shift creates a weird, transitional period. You might be a person of modest means living in 5th century Gaul. Your lighting options are a mess. You might still use an old Roman-style oil lamp you inherited from your grandmother, because it's what you know. But oil is getting harder to find and more expensive, so maybe you try a tallow candle. You hate the smell, but it's cheap. Or perhaps you're a wealthy merchant. You have a beautiful bronze oil lamp for your study, but you also have a set of beeswax candles for impressing dinner guests. Most households become lighting omnivores, using a mix of technologies depending on the task, the availability of fuel, and the occasion. The lamp isn't gone. It's just lost its monopoly. Historians still argue whether the decline of the olive oil lamp was a cause or an effect of the fragmentation of the Roman Empire. The elaborate trade networks that shipped vast quantities of lamp oil across the Mediterranean fractured. Without those networks, regions had to become self-reliant, and that meant switching to local fuels like tallow. The lamp, a symbol of a unified, interconnected Roman world, slowly faded away in the West, replaced by a more localized, inferior, but practical technology. It's a powerful metaphor. The light of Rome itself was guttering out, replaced by the darker, smokier flames of the Dark Ages. But here's the quirky, stubborn part of the story. The lamp didn't disappear. It just went east. While Western Europe fumbled with smelly tallow candles, the Byzantine Empire, the heir to Rome, kept the flame burning literally. In Constantinople, the olive oil lamp remained the standard. The technology was refined even further, with more intricate designs and even specialized hanging lamps for churches. The Eastern Orthodox Church embraced it. The knowledge of how to make them, and the trade in olive oil to fuel them, continued uninterrupted for another 1,000 years. So, while your distant cousin in Britain is stumbling around his drafty hut by the light of a sputterin', stinking tallow dip, you in Constantinople are still reading your scrolls by the clean, familiar glow of a clay lamp. It's a stark divide between two worlds, and it's all based on what's fueling the light. So you look at your little lamp with a new sense of poignancy. It's no longer just a tool. It's a relic of a fading order. Its light feels softer now, more fragile. The world is moving on, opting for quicker, cheaper, smellier solutions. The writing is on the wall, or rather, the soot is on the ceiling from the new tallow candle. The great, calming chronicle of the olive oil lamp is entering its final chapters. Its light is still steady, but the darkness around it is changing, filling with the shadows of new things. It had a good, long run. It lit the dreams of philosophers, the strategies of generals, the prayers of priests, and the laughter of families for over 1,000 years. But nothing lasts forever, not even the night sun. The final flame has guttered out. The last drop of oil has been consumed. The era of the olive oil lamp, as a living, breathing part of daily life, is over. Its light has been extinguished by the march of time, replaced by the sputter of tallow and the steady, waxen glow of candles. The workshops have fallen silent, the molds have broken, and the knowledge of its making has faded from memory. For centuries, the lamp sleeps. It lies buried in the dark, not the nightly dark it was designed to conquer, but the permanent, crushing dark of the earth. It is forgotten. But this is not the end of its story. This is merely a long intermission, because now, another light is about to find it. Not the warm glow of olive oil, but the cool, clinical beam of an archaeologist's torch. You are no longer an ancient user of the lamp. You are its modern discoverer, and you are about to wake it up. Your hands are careful, moving with a patience that feels alien to our fast-paced world. You are on your knees in a trench, the smell of damp soil thick in the air. The context is everything. You're not just digging for treasure. You're reading a story written in layers of dirt. Your trowel scrapes gently, and you see a curve of fired clay. Not a potsherd. This is different. It's too regular, too purposeful. You brush away the earth, and there it is, a lamp. It's upside down, and it's broken, but it's whole. Your heart gives a little jump that has nothing to do with monetary value and everything to do with connection. You're the first person to see this object in over 1,500 years. The last person to touch it might have been a Roman soldier lighting it for his watch, or a mother lighting it for her child's bedtime. You are separated by millennia, but in this moment, you are connected by this single, fragile thing. The process that follows is a ritual of preservation. You don't just pull it out. You photograph it in situ, exactly as you found it. Its position tells a story. Was it found in a kitchen, near a hearth? Then it was a utilitarian object. Was it found in a tomb, nestled near a skeleton's head? Then it was a sacred companion for the afterlife. Was it found in a layer of ash and debris? Then it might have been in use the very day a volcano erupted or a city was sacked. It's a silent witness to history's most dramatic and most mundane moments. You carefully number it, bag it, and carry it to the field lab. There, it will be washed with soft brushes and water, revealing the details the dirt hid, the maker's stamp on the base, the intricate design on the discus, the soot stain still darkening the nozzle. It's not cleaning, it's a resurrection. And now, the lamp begins to speak. Its shape is a timestamp. The early, open dishes speak of Greek origins. The closed-body lamps with volute nozzles scream of the Roman Empire's height. The later, more crudely made ones tell of the economic struggles of the later empire. The lamp is a perfect dating tool for archaeologists because its style changed with fashion, creating a precise timeline in the dirt. A lamp can tell you more about the date of a stratum than almost any other find. It's a clock that stopped at the moment it was buried. But the stories get more personal, more human. You might find a lamp with a wick still in it, preserved by a freak of chemistry, the very last light someone intended to make, frozen in time. You might find one with a child's name scratched clumsily into the clay, or one that was repaired, a small hole drilled on either side of a crack so a wire could be looped through, to hold it together. That repair tells you it was valued. It wasn't just thrown away, it was loved. Historians still argue whether the many perfectly intact, seemingly unused lamps found in graves were bought specifically for the funeral, or were the deceased's own prized possession, too precious to use in daily life. And then there are the quirky, fringe discoveries that make you smile. A lamp found in a corner of a workshop that was later used not for light, but to hold a different kind of liquid paints, perhaps, or pigments, given a second life as a humble dish, or a lamp that was repurposed as a gaming piece or a weight. Its life as a light source was over, but its utility continued. It's a testament to the ancient aversion to waste, a quality we like to think we've invented. Millions of these lamps have been found. They fill museum cases by the thousands, often overlooked by visitors rushing to see the grand statues and glittering gold. But you know better now. You see them for what they are, the most personal, most democratic artifacts of the ancient world. Everyone had one. The emperor and the slave, the scholar and the soldier, the merchant and the farmer, they all lived their lives by the same, small, flickering light. In a world without photographs, without recordings, these lamps are the closest we can get to the actual, lived experience of the past. They are the embers of a long-cooled fire, waiting for us to lean close and feel their residual warmth. They are not grand monuments to power. They are quiet testaments to the universal human need to push back the dark, to gather, to dream, and to simply see each other's faces in the night. They are the calming, chronicling glow of history itself. The story of the flame is told now. The last image has been gently placed in your mind. You have traveled from a sun-drenched shoreline to a dusty trench, from the hands of a Paleolithic innovator to the careful grip of a modern archaeologist. You have felt the weight of a bronze luxury lamp and the simple, common clay of an everyday sun. You have seen how this one, small object was a clock, a heater, a protector, a guide, and a companion. It witnessed prayers and curses, love stories and military campaigns, scholarly breakthroughs and simple family meals. Its light was there for all of it, and now, that light is here for you, not as a flicker of olive oil, but as a quiet thought, a calming sense of connection to the countless generations who also lay in the dark, listening to the world sleep. They were not so different from you. They sought comfort, they sought safety, they sought a little light in the vastness of the night. That need is the true legacy of the lamp, a thread that connects you to them across the centuries. So let the images soften now. Let the history blur into a gentle feeling of warmth. Let the weight of the years become a comfort, a blanket of time. There is no more to learn tonight, no more stories to follow. Just the quiet, steady rhythm of your breath, and the soft, dark safety of your room. The journey is over. The light has been passed. It is yours to hold now, not as a flame, but as a dream. Let your mind settle like silt in still water. Let your thoughts drift away like smoke from a newly snuffed wick. There is no past, no future, only this peaceful, dark, and silent present. You are safe. You are still. You are ready to rest. Let the gentle hum of the fan be the only sound, a soft lullaby for a mind full of ancient light. Drift now, deeper, and deeper, and deeper still.